Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's third video. So we're going to have a look at the Meteo France and ECMWF long-range seasonal models for today's third video. It's going to take us through the autumn and actually we're going to go through the entire winter period as well with the ECMWF monthly forecast that I'll get on to in the second part of the video. So we're going to start off with seasonal tri-monthly anomalies from the Copernicus website with Meteo France and also with ECM. Then we'll have a look at the ECM on a month-by-month basis at the website weather.us. There's going to be a huge amount of information contained in this video. I hope you find it interesting and informative, and it will take us right way through to February 2019. So ultra long range, really pushing the envelope type stuff that we're doing here for you for today's third video. Just to say that the penultimate Gauss Sunny Roundup is currently on the homepage, so have a look at that. It's our second to last Sunny Roundup. There won't be many more of those to come this year. They're going to be shelved for the winter updates that begin on the first Sunday of September. And also the 8th and final analogues update for the autumn 2018 is also on the homepage right now. And that video later on today will be placed on the autumn updates and forecast page. So it'll be a really busy day at the website. Loads of updates, loads of information for you to digest. And of course, this is our third update for you, so we're really been spoiling you, I think, today here at Gauss Brothers. So what we're going to do is start off with Meteo France at Copernicus, and you can find a link to Copernicus on the website, on the links page. You can find a link to Copernicus website there. And then I'll have a look at the ECMWF at Copernicus, and then we'll move on to weather.us. So I think without anything further to say, we'd better get on because we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to start off with mean sea level pressure anomalies from Meteo France for the next few months. So we begin actually with September, October, November. So this is for the autumn of 2018. This is the mean sea level pressure anomaly for the autumn of 2018 that Meteo France is currently forecasting. Right, so this is going to make up part of the final seasonal model roundup that you will see next Saturday. On Saturday, coming Saturday, you'll be able to see the third and final seasonal model roundup for the autumn, and then the autumn forecast will be released a week today. We've only got 1 week to go now before we release the autumn forecast at Gauss Brothers. So this is how the mean sea level pressure anomaly is looking for the autumn of 2018 from Meteo France. We find that we've got below average pressure to the north, so quite an unsettled signal to the north of the country. We've got some above average heights or pressure down to the south. So this looks like a rather Atlantic driven autumn that the Meteo France seasonal model is going for here. We've got low pressure driving in from off the Atlantic. That looks like quite an unsettled signal for the autumn. The next tri-monthly period takes us to October, November, December 2018, and if anything, this is even more unsettled. So that area of below average heights is deepening to the north, and also a little bit to the northeast as well. We've got above average heights strengthening to the southwest around Spain and back into the Azores. So it does look like a really westerly type setup for the end of the year. You'd expect it to be quite wet. The only thing I would say about this is that the trough looks like it's centered a little bit towards Scandinavia, so there's possibly a little bit of a northwesterly tilt towards the flow and the jet stream. We haven't got much of a blocking signal around Greenland. If we have, then I'll be a little bit more bullish about going for something a bit colder from the north. But as it is, I don't think there's enough there to say that it would be cold, but I would think certainly quite cool at times, and maybe northwesterly with that mean sea level pressure anomaly. And then we go through to the final tri-monthly period. This takes us from November through to January 2019. So we go from November, December, January. And again, just looks really unsettled with below average heights over to the north of the country. Very, very deep areas of low pressure there. We've got high pressure to the southwest. It's a little bit displaced to the southwest of us. So not in the classic position to be driving up exceptionally mild air from the Azores. If anything, this just looks quite cool and very unsettled. You expect it to be very wet and at times, maybe particularly for the northern part of the country, a little bit on the cold side as the jet stream again is aligned northwest to southeast. So that's how the mean sea level pressure anomalies are looking with Meteo France for the next few tri-monthly periods. What about the temperature anomalies? So we're going to have a look now at the temperature anomaly from Meteo France for the autumn. This is taking us through September, October and November too for the autumn of 2018. Coming out generally above average. So for western parts of Europe, the anomaly is just kind of like average to a little bit above average. The warmest anomalies to average look like they're over in the east and the north, the northern part of Europe. So quite a mild autumn signal really from Meteo France in most parts of Europe. That's how the next tri-monthly period is looking at in terms of the temperature anomaly. This takes us again October, November, December, so the final sort of 3 months of the year, shaping up again to be quite mild. We're going close to average in the UK, so actually the UK and Ireland coming out as one of the coolest places in Europe, really, compared to average. But again, most parts of Europe, particularly northeastern Europe, coming out warmer than average through October, November, and December. And then we go through to the final tri-monthly period. This takes us from November through to January. So we go from November 2018 to January 2019. And again, most parts of Europe are coming out warmer than average. It looks like quite a mildish winter over Scandinavia and northern parts of Russia, or sort of northwestern parts of Russia. But do bear in mind, those are anomalies to average. So it's going for around half a degree to 1 degree above average there for most of Scandinavia. But keep in mind, that's an anomaly to average. So it'll still be cold, very cold, really, with that for most parts of particularly northern Scandinavia. So you always have to bear that in mind when we're talking about anomalies to average. You have to bear in mind about the part of the world you are talking about. Now, to average for UK and Ireland actually coming out around average once again. So to average, we are just about the coolest places in Europe through this tri-monthly period of November, December, January. And in fact, we are hinting at being a little bit cooler than average. You'll notice it is quite cool here out in the northern part of the Atlantic. That's probably because the air is being pulled out of Greenland to some degree by the alignment of the areas of low pressure being just that little bit centred to the north and the northeast of us. So some cool air being pulled out of Greenland at times makes for the UK and Ireland to be close to average. But again, most parts of Europe are actually coming out with above average temperatures through this tri-monthly period with Meteo France. Right, so have a look at precipitation next. So we need to close in on that. So there we go. We're into Europe, and we've got the precipitation anomalies with Meteo France for the autumn of 2018. So most parts actually have weak precipitation anomalies. The northwest of Europe is hinting at being a bit above average, so particularly around Scandinavia, but also some degree down to the UK and Ireland. We've got those green colours there close to us, so it just hints at being a little bit above average with precipitation through the autumn. Not a big deviation though. Most parts of Europe are coming out again with very weak precipitation anomalies, so no clear signal really from Meteo France for precipitation through the autumn. Now, the rainfall anomalies do intensify as we get through to the end of the year. So this is for October, November and December. And notice the green colours are really ramping up there around the UK and around Scandinavia. It does look very unsettled indeed here as we go into the final 3 months kind of tri-monthly period, if you like, of the year, the fourth quarter. It's no way of explaining it. So it does look significantly wetter than average there in the northwest of Europe to the final 3 months of the year. Elsewhere in Europe, again, very weak signals. The southeast is hinted at to be a little bit drier than average. Otherwise, again, not a big deviation. Most places coming out average or with no particular signal. And then just look at this, the anomalies intensify even further. So this is a very wet spell now that Meteo France is forecasting for the end of the year and into the start of 2019. This is going from November through to January 2018-19. And very, very wet now here across the UK, across France, across Scandinavia, substantially above average with precipitation. Of course, for Scandinavia, most of that is going to be snow. For the UK and for France, probably a lot of that's going to be rain, but there might be some winteriness mixed in, given that the temperature is a little bit on the cooler side, if anything, with those northwesterly winds. But the main thing really is that northwestern Europe, or the north and northwest of Europe, is forecast to be really very substantially wetter than average by the time you get through to late autumn through to early and mid-winter. Elsewhere, the anomaly is quite weak, so precipitation for eastern parts of Europe, no clear signal, no particular signal for Spain and Portugal. This drier area just here, that's where we've got high pressure ridging up from the Azores, but you'll notice it is also looking quite dry to the south of Greenland and over towards Iceland. So that's an interesting area to be coming out dry. It does imply that the jet stream is probably displaced southwards, as we've been saying. Let's get rid of all those areas. So this drier area just here could imply some high pressure, and it could imply that the jet stream is centred a little bit to the south, or perhaps on a northwest-southeast alignment to some degree. So again, that does just provide a little bit of backup for the idea that it might be turning a bit cooler, as well as being very unsettled there for northern parts of Europe. But I think the main takeaway from Meteo France is that it is turning things increasingly wet through to the end of the year. The autumn itself isn't forecast to be overly wet, but as we get through towards the final stages of 2018 into early 2019, it really is going to town on a very wet rainfall anomaly indeed. So that's how things look in Meteo France. What about the ECMWF? So we're going to come back to September, October, November, and this time we're looking at the mean sea level pressure anomalies with the ECM model. So this one looks quite interesting, actually. We've got area of higher than average pressure around Greenland. And that's why it's a very interesting place to have higher than average pressure, with lower than average pressure or low pressure over and to the east of the country. The Azores high looks like it's displaced quite a long way from us, and so this does actually imply the chance of quite a cool, maybe even you could say hinting at a fairly coldish autumn. The Meteo France mean sea level pressure anomaly doesn't show anything like this for the autumn, but I'm going to show you what the model is saying, and that's what the model is saying to me, that we've got higher than average pressure around Greenland and Iceland and lower pressure for the autumn to the east of us, and so that could be quite a coldish signal. Now, as we go through to October, November, and December, the next tri-monthly period actually strengthens that area of above average pressure around Greenland. So this is a proper area of high pressure that ECM is placing over Greenland, or close to Greenland at this point. We've got below average pressure, or low pressure, sort of over the northwest of Europe. The trough is almost parked over the UK. No particular Azores high to talk of. That looks quite weak and displaced a long way from us. And so, again, we could well be entrenching some very cold air into that area of low pressure, perhaps. I do think that the ECM could well be hinting at quite a cold end to the year here with these mean sea level pressure anomalies. Very, very interesting indeed. And then we're through to the next tri-monthly period, and if anything, that signal for high pressure around Greenland is strengthening again. So this is for November, December, January. Bear in mind, the Meteo France model doesn't show anything like this, but this is what ECM is showing, again with above average pressure around Greenland. The trough is centred over the UK and also central parts of Europe. And so again, we could well be pumping in or pushing in quite cold air from the north with that blocking feature around Greenland and low pressure underneath it. That could be a really quite a cold trough indeed. Again, you'll notice the Azores High is a long way for us. It's displaced down here, so that's not providing anything particularly mild. And there's no particularly mild air being pushed into this area of low pressure. The mild air with that high is sort of going in that direction. So there's nothing really there to pump warm air into that trough. And with this area of high pressure up here, I think we could well be pulling down some quite cold air into that trough of low pressure. It looks a very interesting mean sea level pressure anomaly indeed. Now, this is how the temperature anomalies are looking, and they're not doing anything overly cold, I have to say. So given the setup, actually the temperature anomalies are quite disappointing. But then these are seasonal models, and they very often do overcook temperatures quite a bit. So the northwest of Europe is generally coming out, again, similar to Meteo France, as one of the coolest areas in Europe overall. So the west of Europe looks close to average, which compared to the rest of Europe is actually coming out warmer than average through the autumn. Bear in mind, this is a temperature anomaly for September, October and November. Close to average temperature anomaly then from the ECM for the autumn. Then we go through to October, November, December, and again, nothing overly cold is showing up here. You'll notice it does look very warm up here, way to our north. That's indicative of higher pressure that could be up there. But overall, much of Eastern Europe is coming out milder than average. Western Europe is coming out closer to average. You wouldn't necessarily say it's overly mild, but then you wouldn't necessarily say it's overly cold either. So Western Europe is coming out close to average. Eastern Europe is coming out warmer than average. And then we go through to the next tri-monthly period. You'll notice it's turning very warm with the temperature anomaly in the east and the southeast of Europe. So this is the Black Sea just here. So that's kind of like southern Russia just there. And that's the far east of Europe just there. That area where it's gone red is going substantially warmer than average. Most parts of Europe are again coming out milder than average, not as warm as it is in the southeast of Europe, but again it's nothing particularly cold showing up, which is a bit of a letdown given the signal that we had in terms of the mean sea level pressure anomaly. And if that mean sea level pressure anomaly came off, I would expect it to be substantially colder, not just for the UK and Ireland, but for much of Northern Europe. I'd expect much of Northern Europe to be substantially colder than this is showing. Again, we've got these warm anomalies here around the Black Sea and down to the southeast of Europe. When it's warm there, it tends to be colder up here. So if it's warm there, this northwestern part of Europe will tend to be colder, just the way that the climate system balances itself out. So temperature anomaly is rather disappointing, really, given mean sea level pressure anomaly distribution. And then finally we've got precipitation from the ECMWF, and then we'll go on to weather.us. I'll break this all down into monthly periods. So this is how the precipitation anomaly is looking for the autumn with the ECM seasonal model. Again, much of Northern Europe is being forecast to be close to or a bit above average with rainfall. So they are kind of in agreement, Meteo France and ECM, but a relatively unsettled autumn, actually. I don't think ECM is anywhere near as unsettled as Meteo France is, but nevertheless, both of them are kind of signalling an unsettled autumn for the north and west of Europe. The UK and Ireland is included in that. Also looking rather wet down in the southeast. These central areas, no clear signal. The next tri-monthly period looks like that. And this is, again, very interesting. This is the precipitation anomaly for October, November, December. Notice it's looking wet through here. That could well be the jet stream going to the south of the UK and Ireland in that sort of position. It's quite strongly signalled to be drier than average up here to the south of Greenland and over towards Iceland as well. So to me that looks like the jet stream is on a southerly track, and it's in that sort of position going in that kind of direction. Again, not a clear signal for those central parts of Europe. Many areas are coming out with no clear signal. Scandinavia doesn't have a particularly clear signal either. I think the thing to focus on with that is the high pressure that's likely to be around there, and the low pressure that's likely to be coming through here, along with the jet stream being on a southerly track as well. And so what that does, it allows cold air to be pushed down into particularly the UK and Ireland, but also central parts of Europe as well. That didn't show up at all, I have to say, on the temperature anomaly. But then again, these long-range climate models do tend to overcook temperature anomalies. And then finally, we're through to the precipitation anomaly for November, December and January. This is how it's shaping up. Again, we find that we're wetter than average through here, above average precipitation, possibly doing something a little bit like that. So again, we've got drier than average signals around here, so that again is implying high pressure, probably close to Iceland and Greenland. We know from the mean sea level pressure anomaly that is more or less what the model is showing. And it just looks generally very sort of above average with precipitation. Again, close to Scandinavia, close to particularly England and Wales, northern France, down into Spain and Portugal. So I still think even now, at this point, November, December, January, the jet stream is on a southerly track and is going to be doing something a little bit like that. For eastern parts of Europe, no particularly clear signal over there. As far as precipitation is concerned, it looks a bit dry and average down through kind of like the southern Med and towards North Africa. So the Meteo France long-range model is going for a very wet winter and not particularly cold patterns either, because it's very particular block to see alive, but rather cool at times perhaps. But main takeaway from Meteo France is very wet for the late autumn and into winter. The ECMWF model looks a lot more interesting from a blocking perspective. Hints at the blocking hints at being a colder winter, but temperature normally doesn't show it, and also the precipitation anomalies hint at a southerly tracking jet stream. Now, do you want to break this down into monthly periods to see how this all is shaping up? Let's do that, shall we? So we're going to have a look at mean sea level pressure anomalies on a month-by-month basis, going from August through to February. We're going to go from August to February with this next part of the video. So this is the mean sea level pressure anomaly for August. I just thought I'd just start here because it shows that actually for this month, ECMWF has got things about right for the pattern. We've got the above average heights over and to west of the UK, below average heights or lower heights, low pressure to the south. The jet stream is doing something a little bit like that. So still quite a bit of an anticyclonic signal for August, but cooler than through the earlier part of the summer, because the wind is coming in from off the Atlantic. So I think that's broadly how things are going to shape up. Right, so let's have a look at September. This is mean sea level pressure anomalies for September. We've got above average heights or above average pressure being forecast for September to be to the west of us, below average pressure to the north, to the northeast of us. So that looks like quite a changeable and fairly coolish month as well, with the jet stream coming through rather like that. Remember, you can find the link to weather.us on the links page as you can Copernicus. This is how October is forecast. Quite an interesting forecast in terms of the mean sea level pressure anomaly for October, with high pressure to the north of the country. So a bit of a blocking signal there to our north. Low pressure is forecast to be to the south. So you'd expect us to be bringing in quite a lot of easterly, maybe even northeasterly winds with this. With low pressure down to the south, that would be trying to bring wet weather into southern parts of the country. So possibly quite a cool October, maybe even a fairly cold October could be possible there, and maybe quite wet down in the south at times. November looks like that, and what we've got happening in November is high pressure moving out towards the northwest of the country around Greenland and Iceland, with low pressure or a trough of below average pressure across many central and northern parts of Europe. And so this could well be a cold signal for November. Cold and unsettled, I would have thought, is possibly November. And you would certainly not be ruling out the chance of some early snow in November in that kind of setup that the ECM is showing there. That's December, and that's not quite so good from a cold perspective. What's happening in December is that lower than average pressure is coming back into the country, and the jet stream is re-establishing as well. No real blocking signal to speak of up here either. So for December, actually, it looks probably very wet, yes, but I would have thought relatively mild in December, especially compared to that colder pattern that we have in November. However, this takes us through to January, and then it all starts getting very interesting again, because we have above average pressure reappearing once more to the north and northwest of us during January, with below average pressure again very similar to November in some ways, coming back across the UK and into eastern parts of Europe. Again, you'd expect us to be pulling in cold air from the north, maybe even some easterly influences being pulled in there. And then finally we go through to February, and a very, very strong blocking signal appears in February out to the north and to the northwest of us. Below average pressure, low pressure to the south. Again, that could well be pulling in cold east, northeasterly winds. So I think the ECM is actually hinting potentially quite a cold winter. I want to go back to November, and let's just open up the area that we're looking at a little bit more. So why don't we look at, let's look at North and South America. So you perhaps get a slightly better idea of the blocking signal with this. So don't worry too much about this area. That's North and South America. We need to concentrate on this top right hand corner of the chart, and again you'll see that the blocking is actually quite extensive up to Greenland and Iceland during November, with below average pressure to the east. That could well be hinting at quite a cold November there. Let's go through to December. That's how December looks. And for December, the blocking signal is still there to some degree around Greenland, but it is a lot weaker. And so that allows the low pressure to come north. So you can see what's happening there. The jet stream and the low pressure is re-establishing from the southwest during December. A much milder and wetter month would therefore be probable in December. But then it all starts getting very interesting again in January, as we get this mid-Atlantic ridge going and taking it up towards Greenland and Iceland, with below pressure centred over the UK, or trough centred over the UK and into Central Europe. So again, you'd expect to be pulling down cold air into that trough. So after, it looks like it's a cold November, potentially quite a wintry November. Then it all relaxes in December and turns milder and wetter, but then it comes back into January. And then we get through to February, and that looks really, really interesting in February. Look how extensive that blocking signal is around Greenland and Iceland during February. It's a long way out. It's 6 months away. But I think the ECM season model this month, anyway, is definitely hinting at a cold winter here. And a winter that gets colder, actually, as it goes along. The jet stream is down there, and we'd be pulling down some really quite cold northerly, northeasterly winds with that. I'll just quickly run you through the temperature anomaly. So this is temperature anomaly for the UK and for Europe during August. Bear in mind, these are anomalies in Fahrenheit, not Celsius. But anyway, the colours depict what's going on, and you can get an idea that for August, it's going for a warmer than average month, or it was going for a warmer than average month. Warmest anomalies to average through central parts of Europe, not as hot through the UK and Ireland as earlier in the summer. It got that right. That's September, and it's going for a much cooler month in the west of Europe. So the UK, Ireland, France, down to Spain, Portugal, just close to average. Some places coming out cooler than average there. It's not a surprise based on that mean sea level pressure anomaly that was just looking at. Most eastern and northern parts of Europe are still coming out quite warm. I'm going to run through these very quick because we've gone on for too long. This is October, and it's coming out again. Average temperature anomalies in the west of Europe, warmer in the east and the northeast during October. November looks like that. So based on mean sea level pressure anomaly, it is quite disappointing. There's no particularly colder than average temperature anomalies being forecast, but again, I have to re-emphasize all the time, the seasonal models do tend to overplay the temperature anomalies. So a lot of these areas that are being forecast to be average, in reality, they could well turn out to be colder than average, I think. These areas just here that are forecast to be a little bit warmer than average, those areas are likely to be close to average, if you see what I mean. You always have to knock off a little bit of a temperature, a little bit of a few tenths of a degree of these temperature anomalies. December looks like that. Again, warm or a mild month being predicted for the east of Europe. Western parts of Europe are looking milder. And wetter also in December. That's January. Again, probably quite disappointing from a temperature anomaly perspective based on the mean sea level pressure anomalies. West of Europe are close to average, but the eastern parts of Europe are warmer than average. And then this is February, which by this point, because we are into a really strong blocking pattern, is forecasting more or less cooler than average, I think, for these western parts of Europe. And most parts of Europe in February actually come out close to average. I think February would be really a very cold month across many parts of Europe in reality if that mean sea level pressure anomaly came off. And then finally, we've got the precipitation anomalies. You'll see that most parts of Europe are being forecast to have a drier than average August, or were being forecast to have a drier than average August. Northern Scandinavia comes out wetter than average. Much of the Med is coming out a little bit wetter than average too. September looks like that. So overall, we are hinting at quite an unsettled September through many parts of Europe, widely coming out a little bit above average with precipitation in September. Let's go through to October, and that one is coming out, again, a mix from areas to areas, but I think maybe you would say that for the northwest of Europe, it's hinting at being a little bit on the drier than average side, if anything, whereas the southern parts of Europe are possibly hinting at being a little bit wetter than average. This is that very interesting November, and most parts of central northern western Europe are coming out with above average precipitation during November, and some of that could well be wintry given the height anomaly, or the mean sea level pressure anomaly. That's December. Maybe a little bit surprisingly, in December we find that Scotland and Northern Ireland are coming out a little bit drier than average. England, Wales and France coming out wetter than average. I would have thought that's likely to be a very wet month across most parts of the country. I'm just checking to make sure I've got the scale right. Yes, I have. So where it's yellow, it's drier. And I would have thought, really, in December, it is likely to be pretty wet across most parts of the UK. That's January. That's coming out above average with precipitation across most parts of northwestern Europe anyway. Again, a lot of that could be wintry. And then finally we go through to February, which is indicated, because the Atlantic is so blocked off by this point, indicated to be really quite dry across much of the UK and Ireland. The wettest conditions are being pushed down into the southeastern part of Europe. Very, very interesting update there from the ECMWF this month. So let's go over everything that we discussed. So, in terms of Meteo France, it's going for a very wet end to the year. The autumn, a little bit wetter than average for the autumn, but it's getting progressively wetter then as it goes on. So it looks like the autumn possibly isn't too wet in September, but by October, November, December, it is getting very wet indeed. A little bit, hints, been a little bit on the cool side, but not particularly cold. ECMWF looks like it's much colder, or potentially much colder, with this. Not only with the autumn, but also as we go through into the winter as well. The blocking signal looks like it's increasing throughout this next 6-month period, the northern blocking signal. And so by the time we arrive at February, actually we are into a very, very cold and blocked pattern, although it didn't show it on the temperature anomaly. If that mean sea level pressure anomaly came off, that the model is showing for February, that would be a very cold month, but particularly northern and western parts of Europe. I do think, despite the temperature anomalies not being particularly cold, the ECM is hinting at the moment at a cold winter, not only for the UK, but for much of northern Europe. As far as the autumn is concerned, the month-by-month changes show that we have a lot of intra-month variation, but November in particular does hint at being potentially quite a cold and wintry month. So maybe this winter is going to start early and go on and get worse as it continues. It's all very experimental, so don't get overly excited. I know a lot of you will be watching this and wanting a cold winter. This is the update for August for the autumn and for the winter. So the autumn stuff is a little bit more reliable, but the winter stuff is very, very unreliable. It's very experimental, this. Could all look totally different next month, so please don't get too carried away with the idea that just because the ECMWF is hinting with its mean sea level pressure anomalies of a cold winter, that's necessarily how it's going to work out, because I don't think it is. But it is a really interesting update that we've had this month from the ECM seasonal model. Right, so we've gone on a little bit too long at 35 minutes. I'll try and shorten these down. We only do once a month, though, so I don't suppose it really matters. But I will try and make next month's a little bit shorter. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and let me know through the comments if you enjoyed this update. Don't forget to check out the seasonal update, the final analogues update that we released this morning. It's on the homepage. It will be placed on the autumn updates forecast page with written summary later, and also the setting roundups on the homepage as well. Have a look at both of those videos. But at 36 minutes, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.